Here's Johnny!
Many directors aim to intensify visual terror through sound, projecting the director's intended emotional response onto an audience's subconscious. These sounds, such as background music, are used to manipulate the perception and emotions of an audience. Extradiegetic or non-diegetic is defined as the sound that's not audible to the characters of the film, but is intended for the audience. In other words, only the audience can hear these sounds. Extradiegetic sounds are often used in horror films to communicate a contradictory message between image and sound, guiding an audience to a feeling of uneasy tension. But what about the use of silence in horror movies? In this film thesis, I aim to explore how the absence of extradiegetic sound can heighten one's fear when watching a scary movie, compared to those that use extradiegetic sounds. To argue this point, I will touch on how the absence of sounds in horror films is an uncommon technique that exerts a discomfort due to its unfamiliarity. Removing extradiegetic sound is not a typical practice, adding to a film's unpredictability as it removes cues used to prepare for a scary scene. I will also explain how the lack of background music allows the audience to directly relate to the protagonist, making the situation more realistic and terrifying. Recently, there has been an influx of horror films that utilize silent scenes to heighten the audience's response to the characters' situations, like Don't Breathe, The Descendants, and The Silence, and so much more. But the question lingering around these films' success is the reason why silence is so terrifying. To answer this question, one must know the difference between sound and silence. Sound is scientifically defined as the vibrations that travel through the air or another medium and can be heard when they reach a person's ear. Or, in other words, sound is considered as intentional noise produced by conversation, music, humming, honking, and more. While silence, on the other hand, is the absence of these intentional sounds, such as the lack of noise in an empty field, eerie silence of an empty house, or the gaps in speech between two individuals known as awkward silence. In a movie, the use of sound varies. Non-diegetic refers to background music that the audience can hear, but the characters cannot, as seen in this clip of Jaws. The music is not heard by the swimmers, but the viewers. As the instrumental gets louder and more fast, the audience is given an audible clue that something is going to happen. While diegetic music, on the other hand, is sound that the character and audience can hear, like footsteps and breathing, as seen in this clip.
I'm scared to close my eyes. I'm scared to open them.
Being born into the technological era, we have been immersed in a world of sound since birth. Many of us have rare experiences with total silence, as the noises from a busy street, humming of a generator, and sounds from our smart devices are constantly producing background noises. These noises' presence are a part of our everyday life, but this constant exposure has conditioned individuals to adapt a fearful behavior towards silence, as sound is familiar and safe, while silence is uncomfortable. There have been multiple studies exploring recent generations' adapted fear to silence, which has determined that this fearful behavior is rooted in one's constant exposure and accessibility to sound. With these studies in mind, the use of non-diegetic music in film alleviates the potential silence produced by the character's actions, allowing the audience to be at ease. Many directors have picked up on this link between silence and fear, using it to their advantage by including character silence in their film in the form of diegetic sound. But the use of silence instead of non-diegetic sound is not a new practice. Hitchcock is one of the earliest directors to manipulate sound in the genre horror. In 3 of his movies, Lifeboat, Rope, and Rear Window, extradiegetic music is only present in the main titles and end credits, not throughout the film like many other horror films during this era. Hitchcock's reasoning behind substituting background noise for silence is to allow his script's dialogue and the actors' expressions to convey a certain feeling to the audience without sound cues. Hitchcock's absence of music allows the viewer's attention to solely focus on the terror of the film's events. This focus on the situation heightens the room's tension, as the audience is not taken out of the film's reality with background music's addition. Hitchcock's disuse of extra-diegetic music creates a new sense of reality, as the character and viewer experience the same real sounds, resulting in a more realistic experience. Besides creating an authentic, horrifying experience shared by the film's character and audience, forgoing extra-diegetic sound creates a new experience of unfamiliarity, as scary situations are not accompanied by the common audible warning. Building on Hitchcock's disuse of extra-diegetic sound, there are a few films that experiment with the concept of extra-diegetic removal in two different extremes. The Quiet Place by John Krasinski is one of these films that experiment with silence in a few of their scenes. Looking in the movie in total, the inclusion of background music is in many scenes and is therefore not silent. But there are a few scenes that totally remove non-diegetic sound, and is what I will be focusing on. With the removal of background sound, the audience is transported into the film as you experience the same situation as the character, unknowing when the beast will strike, when the timer will go off, or if you are safe. Krasinski's choice of removing background music intensifies the wife scene, as the audience is not able to use audible indicators to predict the scene's outcome, leaving the audience in the film's character's shoes, anticipating and waiting in terror to see what's going to happen next. Another movie that removes extra-diegetic sound is Hush by Mike Flanagan. However, Hush is different from The Quiet Place and many other films, as many scenes completely eliminate sound, producing a terrifying experience for the audience in complete silence. Here are a few clips from the film.
You know what?
Briefly, the movie Hush is about a mute protagonist being hunted by a killer in her isolated home, stuck with the choice of either dying or fighting for survival. Flanagan uniquely puts the audience into the protagonist's world by muting the sound in extremely intense situations, shown when the killer murders her neighbor right behind her and when he creeps up in the bathroom scene, without the protagonist's knowledge. Like A Quiet Place, the lack of background music immerses the viewer into the character's world, allowing them to feel the character's fear. In Hush particularly, That lack of sound disadvantages the protagonist and the viewer, as both are not warned about the scene's potential outcome. For instance, in the bathtub scene, the character and audiences alike are stuck in a silent world, just waiting for the killer to come through the door. In addition to this, tension is heightened as the audience, in a way, becomes mute, as we are unable to communicate to the protagonist that her killer is right behind her. A Quiet Place and Hush are films that truly use diegetic or no sound to deliberately exert fear to an audience from silence unpredictability. Although extra-diegetic inclusion in film is a popular practice, eliminating background music can enhance a scene or movie's fear factor by eliminating the audience's ability to predict outcomes with the cues extra-diegetic sound provides. And it also increases the audience's ability to relate to the character by hearing real situational sounds without excessive music reminding the viewer that they're just watching a film.